And a big, big, big congrats on the Djinn. It's frighteningly smart. I mean, I was watching it alone in the dark all by myself last night. So if I accidentally conjured up the Djinn, it's all your fault. I love it. Now let's begin with the basics. And let's start with you, Mr. David. I know you guys both wrote and directed it, but how did it all begin? Where did the idea germinated from?
Well, thank you for all the kind words on the movie. I mean, this movie really came from us just um, looking at sort of the resources we had at our disposal. We had, we had found Ezra on a casting process for our other movie that had just gotten pushed, and we had access to a small apartment. And we thought, can we craft a story around these two elements? And it was an interesting situation for us where we really reverse engineered what we had. But from it, I think we were able to focus on sort of the themes we wanted to tell. And Ezra, really brought so much to it. He carries the movie, so we couldn't lose with that.
Exactly. And Mr. Justin, how did you guys decide that you'll direct it together? And apparently the experience is so great. You have another movie coming up, right? That you co-direct and co-wrote, The Boy Behind the Door.
Yes. Well, for us working together, it was just it made sense. We've known each other our whole lives. We grew up together in Michigan, literally like met in kindergarten. So like for us, like, we really bonded over horror movies and everything like that growing up. And so it was just kind of like a natural extension of our friendship, wanting to kind of continue working together in this industry with, making movies that we love. So that's kind of how that all went down.
Oh, and Mr. David, the film, like what you said, the film would not have made such an impact without Ezra Dewey as Dylan. Talk to us more about working with him.
I mean, as you can see from his performance, just amazing, but also just, a really cool, down-to-earth kid. His parents are just so supportive of, him and even us. Like, it's just incredible. He even had to learn sign language for this movie. So he really had to, push himself, not just, being able to convey all those emotions, but with no words, but also just, I mean, sign language, like I can't even fathom how it's possible.
You know what? Seriously, I know it could have been, Home Alone with monsters, with a little bit of the Little Mermaid in there, by the way, thrown in for good measure. But
I'm glad you caught Little Mermaid.
thank you.
So glad you got that. That's great.
In the back. Thank you. But what we got though is a very imaginative film. Now, Justin, how did your limited resources propel your imagination?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so we really just had to craft the story around those elements. Everything was like we backed into it. So it was a completely different process than what we normally do. Instead of like coming up with a story and then, finding all the like resources and pieces to put into place, we were like, these are the pieces we have. So let's craft the story around that. And like, how do we connect this dot to this dot and that dot to that dot? Because this is all we've got. And so it definitely tested us creatively. But I think that it ended up leading to something that was more unique and more special, like even just down to him being mute. That never honestly would have happened if we had had a bigger budget, because that simply came out of us wanting to be respectful to these neighbors. And we're in this small apartment complex. And so like from that, we're like, okay, well, if he's mute, like, why is he mute? We came up with his whole backstory, and then that backstory is what led to him wanting to make a wish that leads to the Djinn, and that's where the creature came from. So the whole thing was just backtracked, and it was a really interesting learning experience and exercise, honestly, to figure out how to do something like that.
But here's the thing, it doesn't look cheap. So hats off to you guys. Now, from its soundtrack to the performances, this one is so simple, yet full of scares and heart and smart. So a big congrats on the Djinn again, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Is that the clock from the movie behind you?
Yes, it is the clock.
That's so great.
Oh, congrats and good luck on everything, and be careful of what you wish for.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right.